I'm starting the first example of the pointed tip petal by forming a cluster of stop stitches to form the center of the flower, somewhat like a sunflower, let's say. So I have 8 stop stitches, each made with 2 size 11 seed beads, and like before, the needle and thread passes through the fabric, just grazing the edge of the flower center. This is a clear example of a pointed tip petal. I'm putting on my needle and thread 8 size 11 seed beads. The color is pink. To illustrate more clearly how to make the tip, I will follow that by 2 11 yellow seed beads. I'm now taking a U-turn with my needle and forgetting about the last yellow bead I put on, but going back through the first yellow bead I put on. If you get excess thread showing, hold the very tip of the petal, the yellow bead at the very tip, in one hand, and then pull the needle and thread with the other until the yellow beads slide back down to the pink beads, which are the first side of the pointed petal. I have just completed the illustration on the left. Now I'm going to put on my needle and thread 1 less bead than on the first side of the pointed petal. That was 8 beads, so now I'm going to put on my needle and thread 7 beads. Now I will take the needle, make a U-turn, and pass it back through the first bead of this petal. Here is an example of orange unsecured pointed tip petals. Then there is a circle of round edge petals in blue. Let's go on to the next variation of the pointed tip petal. This time I am going to use the same count of beads as I did with the unsecure pointed petal, but I'm going to use all pink beads this time. So the entire petal will be the same color. If there's a lot of thread showing between your beads, hold the bead at the far tip in one hand and pull with the needle and thread in the other hand until the beads move down together. Sometimes you may have to pull on the beads to help to coax them into shape. I am now holding the point down with my non-beading hand. I'm taking the needle and thread, passed it through the fabric, and I'm now going to pass the needle and thread through only the pink bead at the very tip of the petal and sew it down in place onto the fabric. After I have all my pointed tip petals secured to the fabric, I like to go back and fill in the area with some larger beads. These are faux pearls. Notice the green leaves constructed with a pointed tip petal. There are 2 beads at the point of each leaf, just like we've been practicing. Let's go on to the third variation, in which we are going to extend the pointed tip by using more beads for the tip instead of the two we have just been practicing with. I am using blue size 11 seed beads for the base of the petal and pink beads for the tip. I have 7 size 11 pink seed beads on my needle and thread. I'm going to push the top pink bead away, the last pink bead I put on, and with my needle and thread pass back through all the rest of the pink beads to make an elongated tip. And now, just like all the other pointed tip petals, I'm going to put on one less bead on the second side of the petal than I put on the first right before I added the tip. Here's an example of the pointed tip petal secured to the fabric. First, I made all the petals, and then one by one I secured them to the fabric with a hidden stitch through the bead that's at the very tip of the point. After they were in place, I went back with larger beads and filled in the space inside of each petal, and then further embellished with larger beads around each petal. Notice also I used the rounded petal technique for the dark green leaves. Once I attached them to the fabric with a hidden stitch, I inserted a small bugle bead within each leaf and stitched that to the fabric. I hope these variations you've learned in this class you found helpful so that it generates your own original fantasy flowers. Please remember to leave comments about this class, let me know how I'm doing, and also upload photos of any of your fantasy flowers finished or in progress. We'd all love to see them. Stay tuned to this channel for future upcoming beading videos where I will take other embroidery stitches and turn them into beading patterns, or as I call it, crazy beading. Now on to the last lesson, which is a gallery of inspiration of both my work and past students' work using these techniques mingled with a few other beading techniques.